Hare Krishna to everyone. Please accept my humble pranams to all of you, and I heartily welcome you to Gita Diploma course with Madhusudan Vishnu Das. It's been quite a while now we are together doing this study of Bhagavad Gita. 12 chapters are completed, 13 sessions in total, which means almost like 20 hours of hearing Bhagavad Gita. That's amazing. So I really appreciate your patience, perseverance, determination to continue with this course. I appreciate your enthusiasm and eagerness to learn. And we just have few more sessions left. So it's my request, do complete the course, do stay till the end. That will itself be an achievement for you. So we'll begin today's session, new unit, unit 3, chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita, by saying our prayers. You can join with me in the prayers. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we'll do a quick revision of what we discussed yesterday. It was a very short chapter, only 20 verses, started with Arjuna's question, who is better, a person worshipping the personal form or the impersonal aspect? And Lord Krishna then answered that personalists are much better. And the impersonalists were also explained what they attain in their spiritual pursuits. After that, Lord Krishna explained about the different levels of bhakti, that people can always think of him, people can always engage their intelligence in his teachings, they can engage in the practice of bhakti, or they can engage in selfless activities for his pleasure, working for him, known as Nishkam Karma Yoga, or they can do just good in general for others. And finally, in that chapter, we heard about the qualities of a devotee that makes a devotee dear to Lord Krishna. Total 31 qualities were explained there. Now, a new chapter, a very interesting one. So this section is called Guyana Yoga, like we'll see here on the slide. The first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, they are mainly about work. The last 6 chapters, which we are starting today, are about knowledge. And both these two topics, work and knowledge, should lead to the central subject matter of Bhagavad Gita, which is loving devotion. Technically, this is known as Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. So that is what Bhagavad Gita trying to teach to people. Bhakti, or devotional service to God. A quick lesson. Not everyone who works for us or knows us or thinks about us necessarily loves us. Similarly, whatever we do or whatever knowledge we have, its meaning lies in learning to love God. People may know you, people may work for you, people may also remember you or think about you, but that doesn't mean that they love you. When they love you, that's when they become the most dear to you. Similarly, in Bhagavad Gita, we understand one can work for God, one can know God, one can meditate upon God. But when someone loves God, right, that's when that person knows, or actually that person is connected to God in the most intimate sense, isn't it? So with that lesson, let's begin this section. Here we have to know one more thing, that Lord Krishna is an expert teacher. He's teaching the same subject matter in Gita from so many different angles. We have heard this definition of knowledge before, and we'll be studying that again in this chapter. Complete knowledge means that you should know these 3 subject matters. What are they? Jiva, Ishvara, and Prakriti. Jiva means the living entity. Ishvara means God, and Prakriti means the material nature, the world. You should know all these three completely, and also you should know the relationship between them completely. Then your knowledge is complete. In the first 6 chapters, Lord Krishna explained these three subjects by keeping Jiva in the center. And the other two topics were explained in relation to Jiva or living entity. In the middle 6 chapters, Lord Krishna explained the same subject matter, but by keeping Ishvara or Krishna in the center, God. And the relationship was explained with Jiva and Prakriti. Now, in the last 6 chapters, he's again explaining the same three subjects, but keeping Prakriti in the center and explaining the relationship of Prakriti with Jiva, Prakriti with Ishvara. So this is such a master and wonderful way of teaching, that same subject is explained from so many different angles in order to let that subject sink in the student fully. So that first verse that comes in this chapter is a question by Arjuna. He asks question about 6 things. Like chapter 8 began with 8 questions, chapter 13 begins with 6 questions. Prakriting Purusham Chaiva Shetram Shetragyam Evacha Etad Veditum Ichhami Jnanam Geyam Chakeshava. Arjuna said, "O my dear Krishna, I wish Prakriti uh, I wish to know, I'm sorry, the translation is not complete. I wish to know about Prakriti, Purusha, and the field and the knower of the field, and of knowledge and the object of knowledge." So there are 6 things he's asking. What is Prakriti? What is Purusha? What is Chitram? What is Chetragyam? What is Jnanam? What is Geyam? Okay, little technical terms, but then this chapter will explain everything very clearly. So first, Lord Krishna begins by explaining what is Shetra. Shetra in Sanskrit means land or field in English. So he says, Idam Shariram Kaunteya Shetram. This body, the material body that we have, is called the field or Shetra. An example can be given to explain the subject more clearly. The example of a farmer. See, what is a field of work for a farmer? What is that place called where a farmer works? What is that place called? That's not a tough question, right? Waiting for your responses. Land, or you can say farmland or agricultural land, right? Or field, farm, correct? Farmland. So that's the place where a farmer works. That's the field of work for the farmer, right? The farmer will plow that land, will sow the seeds, will cultivate the crops, and finally harvest the crops. So many activities the farmer will do on that land. So just like for a farmer, that land is the area of work. Similarly, for the living entity, the spirit soul, the material body that it has got is the area of work or the field of work. Okay, that's where the soul works. Now, what does a farmer do? The farmer has desires. He has to maintain his family, he has to earn some money. So he'll go to the king and say, I have such a big family, 10 family members are there. So you give me this much piece of land and I'll grow crops there. And then from there, I'll also give you a tax, some percentage of money or crops on an annual basis. And the king agrees and gives the farmer a plot. Similarly, the soul has some desires to be fulfilled. Now, those desires can be fulfilled with the use of a material body. So, that material body acts as the field of work for the spirit soul. The farmer, he cultivates the field by sowing seeds, different kinds of seeds, depending on what kind of crop the farmer wants. Wheat, he wants to grow wheat, he wants to grow pulses, he wants to grow rice, or he wants to grow some vegetables, some fruits, sugarcane. Depending on that, accordingly, he'll plow the land and sow the seeds, or whatever way of bringing out those crops or cultivations. Similarly, the living entity wants to experience happiness, and for that, it sows the seed of different desires. And those desires are then fulfilled by the body. The body facilitates the fulfillment of those desires, right? This is how the analogy has to be understood. So then, after Lord Krishna explained what is Shetra or field for living entity, the material body is the answer. He goes to the next question of Arjuna, which is, who is Shetragya? Gya means to know. Kshetragya means one who knows the field, or one who is the knower of the field. So Lord Krishna says, Kshetragya means one who knows the body. That is the living entity or individual soul, Jiva. Very simple. The farmer will know about his field, that this year I cultivated the land to grow wheat. And at the end of the harvest period, I got so many kilograms of wheat. So the farmer would know about his land. Similarly, the living entity, the spirit soul, knows about his or her body. Okay, makes sense, right? Like I know about my body, and you know about your body, and the other person would know about his or her body. So then Arjuna says, that's all? No other knower of the body? Lord Krishna says, well, I am also one of the knowers. So then Arjuna says, what is the difference between the two? You also know, and I also know about my body. So Lord Krishna says, Arjuna, you know just about your body, and someone else knows just about his or her body. But when it comes to me, I know about all the bodies, because I am the super soul, the knower of all the bodies. And that is true. Like if I have pain in my body, only I would know about it. You may not come to know about it. Similarly, what thoughts are going on in your mind, you know about them, but someone else may not know about them. But the Lord Krishna is seated in everyone's heart. So he knows everything that's going on in everyone's mind, everything that's going on in everyone's body. He's aware, completely aware. So he's the supreme Kshetragya. Just like if we take the example of that field, the farmer knows about his land, but the king knows about all the lands in the kingdom, right? Similarly, I as an individual soul just know about my Shetra or my body, but the super soul, he knows about all the bodies. And real knowledge or jnana means to know these three subject matters. So that was the third question of Arjuna. What is knowledge? Jnana. And Lord Krishna says this is jnana, to know body, soul, and super soul, or to know the self, to know the Supreme Lord, Ishvara, God, and to know the world around you. The same subject, the same three subjects which we have discussed before in the introduction part, that unit 1 is about the self, unit 2 is about God, unit 3 is about the world. The same thing is being defined here as complete knowledge. Here we'll do an interesting discussion now. You see, there are so many universities all across the globe. There are so many universities in India too. So I have to ask you a very simple question. Let me see how many of you might be knowing about it. Which country has the most universities in the world? I took the statistics an year ago or 18 months ago. So there might be some changes in that. But still, I'm sure the first answer is accurately correct, what I have. And the second answer may be, which I'm going to ask you the second question, maybe a little bit here and there. So the country which has the maximum number of universities at present is India. Okay, and in total, if you look at the graph, the total number of universities all across the globe is 31,097 universities. Now these are registered universities. I'm sure some more would have got added to it, and this figure might have increased a bit more, but still we can say around 31,000 or 32,000 universities all over the world. But in these universities, which knowledge, what type of knowledge is given in all these universities? Complete knowledge is defined by Lord Krishna as knowledge of body, knowledge of soul, knowledge of super soul, or knowledge of matter, spirit, and super soul. But in all these universities, which knowledge is given? Material knowledge about the world. Just material knowledge, right? Which means that knowledge is incomplete. Because complete knowledge is defined by Lord Krishna as knowledge which has three subjects. But then there we get only material knowledge, the knowledge about the world, the knowledge about body, about matter. That too not completely, right? So here we have another very important lesson to learn. But Srila Prabhupada, when he went to Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the United States, it's one of the most prestigious institutes. He gave a talk, and in that talk, he asked this question to the audience, to the crowd. He said, in your university, where is the technical department to study the spirit soul that drives the body? And people are like blank. We don't have such a department. And then Shilpa said, then how is your knowledge complete? Right? Lesson to learn. Unless we acquire the knowledge of soul and supreme soul, that is spiritual knowledge, then no matter how much knowledge we have, it remains incomplete. And as long as our knowledge remains incomplete, how will we be able to experience perfection within ourselves? See, if our knowledge is incomplete, we are incomplete. When we are incomplete, how can we experience completeness in our life? Not possible. Which means we'll not be really happy. So then Arjuna says, tell a little more about Shetra. And Lord Krishna says, okay, I'll tell you, but very briefly, very shortly, because this subject is vast and we don't have so much time. So then Arjuna says, okay, out of curiosity, I want to know, where can one get the detailed description about Shetra? If, let's say, the battle ends, we win, we survive, then I might take out some time to study the subject matter. So Lord says, okay, in various Vedic writings, written by various sages, you can get this topic explained in detail, and especially the book called Vedanta Sutra, which was written by Srila Vyasadeva. This subject is explained thoroughly. And after that, Lord Krishna gives a very brief explanation of what is Shetra. So he says the Shetra, the material body, is made up of 24 elements. When I studied this subject matter, I was so much, I mean, amazed that even in a biology, we did not study that the body is made up of these elements. Biology also just talks about the physical um, elements which you can see. It hardly touches upon the subject of mind, intelligence, ego, and all that stuff. So Lord Krishna says the body is made up of these 24 elements put in 5 categories: Pancha Mahabhut, Jnanendriya, Karmendriya, Indriya, Vishaya Vastu, known as sense objects, and subtle elements known as Sukshma Tattva. What they are, very simple list to follow: earth, water, fire, air, ether, then nose, tongue, eyes, skin, ears, then speech, legs, hands, anus, genitals, smell, taste, form, touch, sound, mind, intelligence, false ego, and pradhana. That's all Lord explains. He doesn't go into detail of it. If you want to know more detail, please, you can study Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, There the same subject matter is explained in great detail, or you can study Vedanta Sutra. Then he goes to the next topic to say what transformations or changes occur in the body. Like if you go to the market and buy a material object, a dead material object, almost all the material objects things are dead only. So out of these six changes that you see on the slide, which one change happens in the dead object, material object? Let's say you bought a mobile phone or a power bank or whatever. So what change will it go through? For those objects which are alive, like a human being, an animal, a plant, anything that's alive, there is birth, there is growth, there is maintenance, there is production of byproducts, there is deterioration, and there is death. There are six changes known as Shatvikar. In anything in which there is Atma, these six changes will be there in the body. But when there is no Atma, there is no presence of Atma, and it's just a dead material object, out of these six changes, which changes happens? There's only one change that happens. And that is what? That's the fifth one, deterioration. It deteriorates, it gets destroyed, right? Everything material has a manufacturing date, and then it starts expiring, and eventually it will get completely destroyed. So Lord says, but the body of a living entity, it goes through six changes in life. These are the transformations. Okay, right? So the body has those changes based on what karma that soul has done in the previous lives. This subject matter which Krishna is explaining in this chapter is very helpful if people want to come out of um, their sadness because they have a certain kind of body which they don't like. Many times people ask this question to themselves and also to Google. Interestingly, once I went to Google and I searched for this phrase, why God made me. You can also try it out. So just type why God made me in Google, and you'll find that the first option that comes is why God made me like this. This means that most of the people in the world, when they are typing out why God made me, they are writing the next two words, why God made me like this, which means they are not happy the way they are. They are not happy that they are, like here you can see the options. They are a girl, they are short, disabled, they are different, alone, single, they suffer, they have black body or this kind of body or that body. So there is some kind of resentment. Why God made me like this? And people even do that. They go in front of the mirror, look at their own face, and then they are lamenting, why am I like this? Hmm? So what's the answer to that question? Why am I like this? If someone is thinking like that, why? Who is responsible for it? In truth, who is responsible? We ourselves, our own past karma is responsible for that. Because of my own past karma, I'm like that, isn't it? So from this section of the chapter, we understand that the kind of body we have and the kind of happiness or suffering we are getting from this body, it's all because of our own past karma. There's no other reason to that. And different karmas, they are compared to different kinds of seeds. We'll come to that, but before that we have a very quick lesson to learn. Whatever we are and however our body is, it is all because of our own actions. When a person understands this, he or she stops complaining to God, and his or her attitude towards life changes, right? There's a change in attitude. that there is more acceptance of reality, and there's no lamentation, there's no guilt feeling, there's no inferiority complex, and you just accept that I did something in the past, and because of that I'm like this, so I should just accept it. And the way my past influenced my present will make my future. So let me work on that, let me be more positive about that. So that's very important. And now we'll understand the subject of karma a bit more. It's a very, very important subject, interesting subject too. Like here, you can see this lady is growing different kinds of plants. So I have a question. Do all seeds give the same type of plant and they grow at the same time? Means they require the same amount of time to grow. Different seeds, whatever seeds they might be, do they require the same amount of time to grow? Yes, no. No, no, right? They don't. Which means some seeds will take days, some will take weeks, some will take months, and some will take even years. Some take even decades. Like if you sow a mango seed, you'll get fruits after years and years and years. Sometimes you may sow the seed and not get any fruit, and then the next generation will eat the fruits. Likewise, every single desire we have is a kind of a seed which is going to produce a karma. And whatever we are experiencing in life now, whatever we'll experience in future, whatever we experienced in the past, they were all the results of some kind of seed that we had sown in the Shetra. People ask this question: why should I suffer for a mistake I did in the past life in this life? Hello, you need to understand that there are some desires which require a long time to fulfill. Like, simple example, if someone slaps me, I can slap back that person immediately, which means there was karma and there was reaction to that karma. But if someone slaps me, I can also see that I am very weak. People around me are more in the favor of that person. If I slap back, I'll be badly beaten up today. So I don't. I just tolerate. But I don't forget it. And after 15 years, if I get a chance, then I take the revenge from that person. Same activity. But in one case, the result came immediately. In another case, the result came after 15 years. So karma is something like that. Very intricate, very complicated subject matter. It produces results in different manners, right? Now if someone slaps me, I can also react in different ways. Like I can immediately slap back, as I mentioned. I can beat that person to death. Someone may get so angry, I can start crying, or I can, as I said, take revenge after years and years to come. So in this way, the subject of karma becomes very complicated, but we do understand that it all happens because we have sown some kind of seed in the kshetra, in the field. And this karma then kind of limits our experience in the world by giving us a certain kind of body. So Arjuna understands all those things, and then he concludes, he says, the kshetra very much restricts one's freedom. How to transcend this limitation then? Because it limits what you can do, how you can think, all that stuff. So how to transcend, how to go beyond this limitation? And the Lord says, with knowledge you can go beyond. Arjuna says, oh, I see. With knowledge I can go beyond this limitation. How to acquire that knowledge? And Krishna says, by developing certain qualities you can acquire that knowledge. What is that knowledge? Already explained. How to acquire that knowledge? By developing these qualities. What are these qualities? It starts with this verse 13.8, and then Lord explains in 4 more verses up to 13.12 total number of qualities that a person have to develop to acquire real knowledge. So this verse is amanitvam, adambhitvam, ahimsa shantirarjavam, acharyopasanam shaucham, sthairyam atma vinigraha. Begins with humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control. Now, a quick question for all of you. How many qualities are described in this particular verse? If you just count them, you'll come to know. 9, right? 9 qualities. In this verse, I mean, which means just 13.8, 9 qualities. Now, next question. Is the method of attaining spiritual knowledge and material knowledge the same? Yes or no? No, not same, right? It's not same. How is it not same? When you have to learn a material subject matter, you may not need these qualities. Like, for example, someone who is learning mathematics, that person may not have self control. That person may be a drunkard. That person might be smoking. That person may not have tolerance or humility, but can also learn mathematics very nicely, can also become a genius in mathematics because it's material subject matter. But for spiritual subject matter, in order to learn that subject matter, one must have nice, good qualities because the qualities facilitate the learning of such subject matters, right? So, in order to awaken spiritual knowledge, these 20 qualities have to be duly accepted or acquired. Then understanding spiritual subject matter becomes easier. So then Arjuna next asks the fourth question, Geyam. What is to be known by those qualities? You may wonder, what does this question mean? What is to be known? So Krishna says, what is to be known? Brahman is to be known by these qualities. There are two kinds of Brahman. Brahman means spiritual substance. One is called Jiva Brahman and the other is called Para Brahman. Jiva Brahman means Jivatma, individual soul. Para Brahman means Paramatma, the supreme soul. We'll understand through an example. Let's say there's a boy and there is a handycam, a camera. So if the boy is operating this camera, in this case or in this scenario, the one who knows is same or different from the object that is being known. Now, the boy is the one who knows, and the camera is the object to be known because the boy is operating it. But are they the same? It's a simple question. They are not the same. They are different, right? Right? They're different. They're not the same. However, Lord Krishna is telling here in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna that you are a person, a living entity, individual soul, and the goal of this knowledge is not to know something outside you. Just like this camera is something different from the boy who's trying to learn it or know it. But as a spirit soul, you are supposed to acquire this knowledge to know yourself. You know yourself. That's called Geyam, the object of knowledge. And when you know yourself, you also know the source of the self, which is Paramatma, the Supreme Soul. So the different qualities of Geya or the Supreme Soul are also explained in this chapter. He is omnipresent, first quality, and second, he is omniscient. Omnipresent means everywhere. So he's outside, he's inside, he's far away, he's near. And because he is omnipresent, he has another quality. What is that quality? Now, I have a question to ask you here. Why are we not omniscient? Omniscient means one who knows everything. Everything means everything. Everything that's happening in all different parts of the world now. So we are not omniscient, that is true. But why are we not omniscient? What's the reason for that? Because we are limited, very true. Or you can also say because we are not omnipresent, very true, right? We are not omnipresent. We are not everywhere. Because we are not everywhere, we don't know everything. But because Lord Krishna is everywhere, he is omnipresent, he is also omniscient, he knows everything. So then Arjuna says, why is he not visible then? If he is everywhere, he should be visible. Krishna says, because he is subtle, sukshmatvat. Then Arjuna says, where is he inside us? Lord Krishna says, Hidi sarvasya vishtitam. He is inside the heart, inside Hridaya. And finally, Arjuna asks, is it divided? Because anything which is too many in number, then either that thing expands itself or that thing is divided into small parts. So he says, is he divided? And Lord Krishna says, no, he is not divided. He is just one. We'll understand that point little later again, like using this example right after this slide. See here, you can see there's a sun. Imagine the sun is in the sky. It's noon time. And then there are lots of water pots kept on the plant, kept on the soil or on the land. Now, these water pots are filled with water. So when the sun is in the sky, you'll see the reflection of each of the sun in each of the pots. Correct? You'll see the reflection in each of the pots. But that doesn't mean that there are so many suns. There's just only one sun which is reflected in different pots. Correct? Now, when you break the pot, all the reflections they go away. But as long as the sun is there and there's water in the pot, as many water pots, that many reflections you are going to see. It doesn't mean that the sun has become many. It doesn't mean that the sun has got divided. It just means that the sun is one, but it is reflected in different pots. Similarly, the super soul is one, but is reflected in the different hearts of the different living entities. That is explained here. All this is a little technical, right? You might be wondering that somehow the subject of this chapter is so different from what we've discussed in the previous chapters. So it is true because this section is called Guyana Yoga. So it's so much more on the intellectual platform, not like the previous chapters. However, here we have a very interesting point for you to learn or note. See, people go for heart transplantation, right? So I have a question for you. When a heart transplantation takes place, where does the soul go? Stays in the body, remains in the heart. Well, but the heart is transplanted, no? Heart is removed and a new heart is put inside to a different body, to other parts of the body. Stays there, doesn't go anywhere. Okay. So I hope you are understanding the point that we are trying to make, that when there is a heart transplantation, the heart is changed. A new heart is put inside, the old heart is removed. So the soul sits in the heart or lives in the heart. Even the super soul lives in the heart, just like Now Arjuna asked the question, where is the super soul living in the body? And Lord says, within the heart, Hridaya. So people may have this confusion. Then where did the soul go when the heart was transplanted? Did it go to the body of the other person? But then you remain the same person even if the heart is transplanted. So we come to learn something very interesting from Gita and other scriptures. Then when Lord Krishna says that the soul resides in the Hridaya or super souls resides in the heart, it means it refers to not the organ heart, but it refers to the subtle heart known as Sukshma Hridaya. That is not transplanted. That is the energy seat, the place from which all the energy, the prana, the life force comes. And that life force comes from there because of the presence of soul and super soul. So when the heart transplantation happens, it's actually transplantation of the organ heart, but not the transplantation of the subtle heart where the soul is always residing. And this subtle heart is in all the living entities, regardless of whether they have a physical organ heart or not. Because there are some entities which do not have a physical organ heart, right? They are too small to have a physical organ heart. They don't have. So, so for them, where is the soul then, right? For them, where is the soul? So basically, it's the subtle heart where the soul is. Then Lord Krishna comes to the next topic, the final two questions which are left to be answered. Prakriti and Purusha. Who is Prakriti? One that is enjoyed. Who is Purusha? One who enjoys. And Lord says, both of them are my eternal energies. Arjuna has a question then. How can Purusha be energy? And if it is energy, then it should also be called Prakriti. Krishna says, yes, in the conditioned state, the living entity Jiva, who is my superior energy, Prakriti, out of ignorance, consider himself to be Purusha. So this is a bit more technical again, right? So these two terms, Prakriti and Purusha, means Prakriti is the energy or enjoyed, Shakti, and Purusha is the energetic or the enjoyer or Shaktiman. Originally, there is only one Shaktiman or enjoyer, the Supreme Lord Krishna. However, in material world, in material life, the conditioned living entity starts thinking himself or herself also as the enjoyer, Purusha. That's wrong. On spiritual platform, living entity is always a Prakriti, known as spiritual energy of the Lord, Adhyatmic or Para Prakriti. And being Prakriti, that entity is enjoyed by the Lord. However, when that entity comes to material world, that entity then takes on the role of Purusha. That's artificial, but it takes on the role of Purusha and starts enjoying the matter around, begins to enjoy the matter around, and imagines itself to a Purusha. So that's what is explained here. Out of ignorance, the conditioned soul considers itself to be the supreme enjoyer. Finally, Lord Krishna then says, Purushaha prakriti sthohi bhungte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangosya sad asadyoni janmasho. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species. So then Arjuna says, who is the actual Purusha then? Upadrashtanumanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwaraha paramatmeti chapayukto dehesmin purusha paraha. Lord Krishna says, yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the super soul. That super soul is the witness and also the permitter of everything that is happening, people are doing, people are thinking, people are speaking. So in that way, the super soul witnesses it and accordingly the supersoul rewards or punishes the living entities. Like, for example, what is needed to prove any court case? Some allegation is there upon someone. So, how is it proven? What is the criteria to prove any case? They need a they need an evidence, correct? They need a proof, or there has to be a witness, right? Witness is required. So similarly, in this world, we engage in different kinds of activities, and there has to be a witness for those activities who can keep a record. You did this on that day at that time to this person, right? So the super soul is the supreme most witness, but along with that, the super soul has 13 more witnesses who assist him. And what are those 13 witnesses? That is explained in the scripture called Srimad Bhagavatam. Those 13 are earth, water, fire, air, ether, directions, day, night, evening, sun, moon, demigods, and Yamaraj. These are the 13 witnesses. Plus, then there is the super soul. So these 14 completely keep track of what different activities a person is doing. They witness it, and then it is registered. And accordingly, then that person is rewarded or punished. So the law of karma is designed to make us scared? No. The law of karma is designed to make us responsible. If this law did not exist, there would never be order and peace in the society. One may escape after breaking the laws made by man, but one cannot escape after breaking the laws made by God. Krishna then says, on understanding these subjects, a person attains freedom from birth and death. Arjuna says, there are other means of attaining the same goal, right? Because Krishna has explained before that earlier. And Krishna says, yes, certainly there are. I have already told you that before. Dhyana Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, Nishkama Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. There are so many ways one can understand the same subject. So then Lord Krishna is inquired to by Arjuna. One who knows this, how does he see? And Krishna says, he sees through the eyes of knowledge. Jnana Chakshuhu. Very important point. Jnana Chakshu. To see through the eyes of knowledge. Everyone sees in this world, but just to see through the eyes is something that an ordinary animal also does. But when one sees through the eyes of knowledge, then only one is actually a special person or a human being. Seeing through the eyes of knowledge makes you see much more than someone who is just seeing like that. Like, to give an example, you go to a doctor, let's say an Ayurvedic doctor, and then the doctor tells you, show me your tongue, bring it out, pull it down. So when the child shows the tongue to the doctor sees the tongue. And looking at the tongue, the doctor is able to identify which part of the body is not functioning properly, which organ is not functioning properly. This is a big science. I'm not able to show you on zoomed screen, but you can still get some idea. Then on the tongue, there you can see the placement of different organs. So looking at the texture, the color, the roughness of the skin, all that, the doctor comes to know which organ in your body is not functioning properly. Now, if I would have been shown the tongue by someone, I would not come to see all those things which a doctor can see. Why? Because the doctor's eyes are trained to see like that. The doctor sees with the eyes of knowledge. So that's what is being told here, that such a person who knows all this is able to see the world through the eyes of knowledge. And finally, it's explained, question may come. If the sun is just at one place, if the sun is it's just one, how does its effects spread everywhere? The sun is at one place, but its effect spreads everywhere, far and wide. So, how does it spread its effect everywhere? Yeah, it shines. So, it spreads the rays everywhere, the rays around the light. Correct? Through the rays, through the sun rays, by its energy. So, just like the sun spreads everywhere by its energy, it illuminates the whole universe. Similarly, the soul is at one place in the body, in the hridaya, the sukshma hridaya, the subtle heart. But the soul spreads its effect or its influence, known as consciousness, throughout the body. In that way, the soul pervades the body or manages the affairs of the body. Hmm? So, with that verse, the Lord Krishna ends this chapter. He says, Shetra Shetragayorevam Antaram Jnana Chakshusha Bhuta Prakritim Moksham Cha Ye Viduryanti Te Param. Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attain to the supreme goal. So now you can start sending us your questions. This chapter has been completed. We will take those lessons which we do, 5 lessons, and then we'll take your questions. So this chapter was about witness, Shetra Shetra Gyor Vibhaga Yoga, the yoga of wisdom. It talks about the world, right? The lessons, karma is like a seed. Be very careful in your life what kind of seeds of karma you are planting. That is what you are going to experience in life. Such kind of fruits will come to you. Either those fruits will be very sweet or those fruits will be very bitter. Now it depends on you what kind of seeds you have sown in the past. So karma is like that. Be very, very careful. Second, freedom is our birthright. Arjuna is wanting to know how can we get rid of the limitations that this body, this Chetra, imposes upon us. And Lord Krishna said, through knowledge. And then you experience your real freedom. So that freedom that Lord Krishna is talking about, this is something which the soul has. That's natural for the soul. It's its birthright. It is supposed to be free. And we all should try to or aspire to get that freedom or experience that freedom. That's what life can actually give us, and not remain limited by our body and mind and intellect. We can expand our consciousness. Next, third lesson, very important. We need to wake up. Wake up from what? Wake up from a sleep that we have been into for so many years, not interested in spirituality or spiritual life, and only interested in material life. A person who is just interested in material life is sleeping, actually sleeping to spiritual reality. That person's knowledge is incomplete. Because that person's knowledge is incomplete, that person experience is also incomplete. Because that person's experience is incomplete, that person's happiness is also incomplete. So when we wake up to spiritual reality, where knowledge is complete, experience is complete, and our happiness is also complete. Next lesson, we are never alone. Now, this is something I like a lot. This chapter teaches us that Paramatma is sitting in the heart of every living entity. People experience loneliness, sadness, fearfulness, and they think that no one is with them, no one is helping them, they're struggling all by themselves. But from this chapter we understand no one is alone. Everyone has their best friend with them always, and that best friend is Lord Krishna, sitting as Paramatma, super soul. So we need to reach out to our friend who is very close to us in the heart itself, and share our heart with him, express our feelings for him, right? That is to be learned. And finally, character is power. Character is power. So, in this chapter, we learned that by developing good qualities, you develop knowledge also. A point which is hardly understood, appreciated in modern times. People emphasize so much on skill development, personality development, and stuff. But what about character development? Developing good qualities, that is very powerful thing. And when we do that, we are benefited also with spiritual knowledge, lots of spiritual knowledge, right? So a quick glance at the whole chapter. Arjuna begins the chapter asking 6 questions. Lord Krishna explains about the first three of them: field, Shetra, knower, Shetragya, Jnana, knowledge. And then the process of acquiring that knowledge, known as Jnana, again, is also explained. Whom to know through knowledge, Geya is explained in verses 13 to 19. Then in 20 to 26, he talks about Prakriti, Purusha, and their contact. And finally, he talks about seeing the world through the eyes of knowledge, right? So with that, this chapter ends. We'll now take your questions. First, Tulika ji, can we follow all paths in our life, karma, bhakti, and jnana? No, you have to follow one path, and that path should be bhakti, because within bhakti, you should know karma and jnana are quite much included. Because when you love God, you also work for God, and you also know God, and you also meditate on God. Everything is included. So, Gita recommends everyone to take to the path of bhakti if possible. And that will give one the benefits of all the other paths, plus the benefit of bhakti also, right? If you just follow all the paths without properly understanding the science, then it will be like going nowhere. Next, how is the soul in our body different from super soul? Because the soul in our body is God, right? No, the soul is you, and God is different, super soul. The soul is you, who is very limited, very tiny, and that's why the consciousness of that is also very tiny. But God is different. God is Vibhu, huge, unlimited. There's one God, but there are many tiny, tiny souls like us. And we, because are tiny, we are dependent on that supreme soul. Therefore, there are two kinds of souls: the individual soul and the supreme soul, known as super soul. So the individual soul is supposed to express the feelings of love, service, gratitude towards the supreme soul, that is called bhakti. So the soul inside us is not God, that is we, myself. But the super soul inside us, that is God. Next question, Ankita ji. Our soul stays in human shape, form in our body or in heart? It doesn't stay in human shape, but it stays in the subtle heart. It doesn't have a human shape. If we regret an action and make amends for it, can the karma be eliminated? Not always, but to some extent, yes. If you seek forgiveness for it, or you also make amends for it, then you are forgiven. But you may not completely get rid of karma. To get completely rid of karma, the only path that is prescribed or that functions or allows is you should do devotional service to Lord Krishna. Or does it persist? Is it possible to be forgiven for regretful actions? Yes, we are forgiven, no doubt about it. If we have done something wrong, we are forgiven to a great extent if we seek forgiveness, and our punishment or suffering also gets considerably reduced. Hmm. But it doesn't mean that it gets completely removed. It means it will also be there to some extent. It can only be completely removed when we engage in bhakti, devotional service. Next question. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Does Krishna still has pastimes in his Dham Vrindavan in subtle form invisible to us? Yes. Ankita, weren't the Kauravas and Pandavas taught this knowledge during their learning time in Gurukul? Why is Arjuna learning it so late? Very good question. So Arjuna learned all this. But did you miss the previous chapters of Bhagavad Gita? If yes, I request you to also go to the previous chapters and learn more about Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna here has temporarily forgotten this knowledge. And that is again why done, because it's a drama for Arjuna to act like a fool so that Krishna can speak the knowledge, and that knowledge can benefit not just Arjuna but all of us. So please, it's for us that he's asking these questions. We are getting benefited by that answer, because it's not that it's only Arjuna who is spirit soul. I am also spirit soul. So what experiences Arjuna goes through as spirit soul in that material body of Arjuna, I also go through similar experiences in this material body as spirit soul. So that knowledge is helpful for everyone. Arjuna is just being an instrument. Krishna is in every heart. Why can't he stop persons from doing wrong to suffer? Krishna is in everyone's heart, true, but Krishna has also given you a freedom that you decide what you want to do in life. Now you may say Krishna can take away that freedom. He can do that also, but if he takes that freedom away from you, then you'll no longer be a person. Then you'll be a dead object. Then you won't have the power to ask these questions also, right? Now, for example, why are you asking such a question? Because you have a freedom to ask such a question. Others are not asking a question like that. You are asking a question like that, which means you have a freedom. The other person has a freedom. I have a freedom. And on the basis of that freedom, we are able to ask different kind of questions. So when you say Lord Krishna can make someone do just the right thing only, where is the question of freedom then? And if there is no freedom, then where is the question of life? Where is the question of you being a person? Then you are just a dead object. You're just like a robot. So expecting something like that is basically foolishness. That means indirectly we are expecting, why should we exist? We should not exist. Rather than putting the blame on Lord Krishna, why not we take responsibility for our choices? If we have made the wrong choice, we will suffer. So let's not make the wrong choice. Let's learn what is the right choice and then do the right thing, right? Next, how much knowledge required to know super soul? Is it self-realization? Yes. It's not just about knowledge to know super soul. You have to purify your consciousness, and that you do by engaging in different spiritual activities. It begins by chanting the holy names of Lord Krishna every day. Gaurav Saha, does the super soul exist within the hearts of the demonic species of life? Of course. Super soul exists in everyone's heart, even in the demons. Santosh Sahu, gross body, subtle body, kaisa hai? Well, the subtle body and gross body are two different kinds of bodies. Gross body is made up of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Subtle body is made up of mind, intelligence, and false ego. If you said freedom is a right, from what do we have to get freedom? Freedom is a right, but you have lost that freedom. Why? Because of misuse of our freedom. If I give you some freedom and if you misuse it, what will I do? I'll take that freedom away from you. But then if you request me, come on, please give me a chance, I'll not misuse it again, then I'll give you your freedom back. So freedom is our birthright, but we have lost it. To be soul, one is naturally free. But when the soul, due to its own wrong choice, takes upon a material body, why it happens, we'll discuss more in the coming chapters. Then that freedom is gone, it's lost. So you have to regain it. And that's called real independence. Next, Dorothy Dolly. Super soul is one. Still, there are so many religions. Not because of super soul, because of different desires of the different souls. Each soul is born in different families and religion. So, are all the other religions following demigods? Maybe, may not be. Actually, different religions, they are also very vast. They also have different understandings, different types of understandings. So there is demigod worship in other religions also to some extent. And there is impersonalism also to some extent. And there is personalism also. Rohit Khandalwar. If Bhakti Yoga is ultimate, why Jnana is prescribed after the section of Bhakti? Jnana is not prescribed. Jnana is being taught in order to assist bhakti. It's karma and jnana supporting bhakti, not being prescribed to be practiced independently. It is like a support to bhakti. So the knowledge given in these chapters will help you to become a devotee, better devotee of Lord Krishna. How can we feel existence of Paramatma in our heart? Very simple. Just be honest. You'll start getting guidance from Paramatma in your heart. If you want to cheat yourself, that's a different thing. Then will not be able to sense Paramatma's presence. But if you are an honest person, then you will hear the voice of Paramatma. Paramatma is always guiding, always helping you, giving you signals. So in that way, you can feel the presence of Paramatma. That's the easiest way to do it. How the souls are created? The souls always exist. They are never created. They're eternal. That's the quality of soul. Riya, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, does gaining material gyan help in bhakti? If not, then why are recommended to complete a material education? Material knowledge can help in bhakti also, because material knowledge will help you to get a job, get some employment. Now, if you are employed, then you'll take care of your maintenance, which is required. They are practitioners of bhakti at different levels. So we may not be at the highest level of bhakti. We still have a material body, and that material body has its needs. We have a material mind, and it has its needs. We have relationships, and that also has some requirements. So we have to fulfill all of that. For that, we have to engage in our material duties. For you to engage in your material duties nowadays, education has somewhat become important. So that's why it has to be accepted or learned. Arohi Bhaumik. Hare Krishna, I want to know, sometimes we suffered between mind or heart. That time, what should I choose to do? Give me a specific case, right? Because you have to give me a situation. Tell me a situation, then I can tell you what you should be doing. But I cannot give you a very generic answer. Go for the mind, go for the heart. It's a very abstract way of looking at problem. So it has to be a specific problem, then I can give you a specific solution. How did the rishis go beyond their body limitation? By cultivating spiritual knowledge and practicing spiritual culture, and understand the whole universe. Is it possible even in this age? Of course, yes. You begin your spiritual journey, then your consciousness will become so huge. Priya Bhatia ji, while chanting, a lot of thoughts come. That's natural. And how to control these thoughts from coming? Is it difficult? Nothing is easy. So it's difficult. But you can stop the flow of these thoughts or reduce it considerably by bringing your mind back on the words, the mantra that you are chanting, the names. So let's say if you're chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The mind may run here and there, that's natural. But then what you do is tell your mind, please come back, listen to the words, listen to the mantra, be attentive, don't run here and there. Other things you can do throughout the day. So by this practice, Lord Krishna mentioned to Arjuna, bring it back, pull it back. So we need to do that. And by that, we can control our mind. Okay? Ira Bediji. Souls are eternal, but they reside in bodies. And population size keeps on increasing for humans, reducing for other creatures. Please guide. So what guidance you want? Soul is eternal, they reside in body, true, because of their desire to reside in body. There are souls who also reside without a material body. They are called liberated souls. The population is increasing. Well, for humans, yes, but overall, if you look at all the different living entities, we cannot say what is the exact population count, right? So uh, maybe you can specify exactly what you want to know more. Fine, so we'll stop here. Thank you so much. Now we'll see you tomorrow for chapter number 14. That's going to be a very, very, very interesting chapter. Very interesting chapter. And you'll know something, not something, a lot about your personal nature, whether you're a sattvic person or a rajasic person or a tamasic person. And that will help you immensely in your personal life. So do join for tomorrow's session. Invite other people also, even if they have not done this course, they are not interested in Gita, whatever. But tomorrow's session is going to be an eye-opening session for everyone. It's about the three modes: Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna, and you will come to know a lot more about yourself, maybe much more than what you have known so far about yourself. So we'll stop here. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.